I would like to start this conversation with my husband. Can we?
Yeah.
And all right, sorry, I got to start over. Okay. So I am Shayla, and I am coming to you with the very first episode of Take Back My Life, which is a theme that I have taken from my revised version of my book titled. What is my book title?
He
Uh,
almost stole my
you
life,
almost stole my life.
which is not
So
written about me, apparently.
it's not written about you. Some people think it was written about you,
Apparently.
but it's not. It's written about
Apparently.
a past situation, a past relationship. However, I revised it. So there is a version, a 2.0 version, and the subheading is Take Back My Life. And it really is a reflection of my life and where I am 15, almost 20 years after I wrote the first version. And for some of you who may not know, the first version of my book, Take Back My Life, was not intended to be a book. It was actually me journaling. Um, and I had to pretty much write down reasons why I needed to stay out of a horrible relationship. So it started off as a journal. It was turned into a book, and this coming out soon, hopefully October, is the 2.0 version of He Almost Stole My Life, called Take Back My Life. And I am shamelessly plugging my own book. However, it should be out in October, so look for that. But there is a section in my book where I talk about uh, turning lemons into lemonade. And I think that is crazy because when I wrote that part in my book, and it's a very small, small portion of the book, I wrote it reflectively. And it was in regards to me turning a very traumatic situation in my life, that relationship, and then losing that relationship, and then losing my mother, and then losing a bunch of my friends, and then ultimately almost losing myself, turned that into something less bitter, more sweet, which is a book and multiple other things where I can actually reach out and help other women and some men um, go through some traumatic situations in their lives. So I say all that to say that I didn't, when I wrote that in the book, I wasn't as emotionally attached to the situation. So I could write it freely without feeling what
Mhm.
I felt when I had to go through that. And I thought it would be only right for my first episode of Take Back Your Life to have my very own husband, John Price III, on with me, because we're going through a situation where life just threw us a bag full of lemons. And I'm realizing now how difficult and how daunting and how fearful the task of churning those lemons uh, into lemonade, into something, taking that bitter and making it a little sweeter, versus throwing lemons in the back of the fridge and forgetting about them and letting them go rotten, meaning festering and that just stuff building up in your soul. Um, so I kind of got smacked in the face a little bit because God's like, okay, you want to write about it, so let's go through it again, so you can know and experience and feel what it feels like to actually take a bad situation and make it better or make it tolerable. And right now we're in the process of making a bitter situation tolerable,
Mm.
I would say.
Yeah.
It is not fun. And I'll let John elaborate a little more on it because I tend to I tend to give a lot of detail that he may not want out there. And since we're sharing this experience, I'll let him in a minute actually discuss some of the stuff that's going on. But I want you to know that when I talk about turning life's lemons into lemonade, I'm not telling you to do something that is not difficult and is not going to hurt and is not going to cause some pain. And I'm not saying it lightly. And I don't want anyone out there to think that I'm saying to turn life situations that are horrible into something that's better.
Right.
I'm not taking that lightly. It's very hard, and it's a lot of processing that you have to go through, and it's a lot of, moments that you have to have with God. You have to stand firm in some of the truths, and you have to stand firm in the truths of God. And basically, that's what faith is. And I am smiling right now, and I can laugh a little bit right now. John can attest, I was crying yesterday. I had a bad day yesterday. I may have a bad day tomorrow. So the process is up and down. It's never a smooth, and it's never a steady process. But it is possible to turn something bitter into something sweet. And that's what we're here to talk to you about right now. So if you do not mind,
I can jump in.
You can jump in and let the world know a little bit of what we're going through.
Sure. So just from the rip, I would just say, I'm enormously grateful for you, because kind of like you said, we're attached at the hip. This is a three-legged race, kind of, in some ways, where everything that happens to me is in some way related to you and vice versa. So I'm grateful just to see you, in the fight, in the dog fight, in the trenches with me. So for you to convert, painful past experiences, domestic violence, loss of loved ones, medical, crises. I mean, for all this stuff over an extended period of time, and to convert that into ministry and business and a book, and a platform like this is awesome. Let alone the fact that I get to do life with you. So that's the first thing I want to say. And then just to elaborate on our current lemon situation. So not that long ago, and some folks, may or may not remember that we have been in the South, and we've been here for about 2 years now, on account of me having a new position on the pastoral staff at a church in the South. And about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was suddenly, unexpectedly, abruptly terminated from employment. I mean, no preamble, no, you know what I'm saying? No Vaseline, just straight, hey, this is what's being done. And it happened in such a way that, it was, I mean, shell shocking to say the least, staggering. You talk about 2 years of pouring out your life, having exceptional reviews, and, just having people laud the work that you do and how much of value. And then with really little to no explanation to really rationalize how this decision was made, for that to be handed down. And I think the worst of it is just that, two things. Number one, this is not my first rodeo. It's not our first rodeo. So job loss has happened during our marriage, more to me than to you, but obviously still affecting the both of us, right? And then so that's thing one. And then thing two is just so much was, it feels like was over leveraged, meaning there was so much tied to this opportunity. It was like, along with it was tied, okay, new job, was tied, moving hundreds and hundreds of miles, away from home, was tied, you know what I mean? A church home. So you got church home, new job, your new community, all of that was wrapped up. And so essentially all of that fizzles away once you're let go. And so I would say the process for me and for us, I guess the last couple of weeks of just trying to turn lemons into lemonade is, what that's looked like is, like you said, seeking God's face, I am thankful that I have a pretty good, what I call a crisis management gene. So if a house is burning down, I am the type of person, like I am like the emotions sort of cut off and I'm dealing with everything from the neck up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, oh, okay, oh yeah, my life was just completely upended. You just gave me some backbreaking news. What am I gonna do? Okay, well, let's think about what are the sort of the next steps. And so that's been happening, where I've just sort of said, all right, what needs to happen? So we just sort of you and I have sort of been game planning around utilizing our time and our schedule in a different way, making sure that we have devotion the first thing in the morning, all of that stuff. And that's what we've been doing. And then it's given us this opportunity where the lemonade comes in, is that, we have a platform like this. Like we have been talking, babe,
Mm-hmm.
how long has it been, we've been talking about like getting back in the saddle with this work right now?
Um, I I guess 2 years since we've been down
I
here.
guess it's been 2 years. The whole 2 years we've been,
Yeah, yeah.
and so yeah, so just saying that all to say, it's amazing how, again, God will take you through stormy process. It's hurt, it's painful. You're questioning everything. You're wondering like which way is up. What part did I do wrong, God? You having a Job experience almost.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The bottom just falls out, and you're totally overexposed. You're over leveraged, and yet and still God has been faithful. We haven't missed a
Yeah.
meal. We haven't,
Mm-hmm.
um, son's doing well, he's thriving in school, all of that stuff, and I'm thankful for it. And I think through this process, God is teaching me and teaching us like how to trust him in the dark.
Yeah, yeah. And because it's easy to trust God when things are going great, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to follow him when things are looking up, when all your plans that you've laid out, and we're a big goal setting family. Like
Yeah.
our life is pretty much centered around goals, and our goals are, one of the things about our goals is that they have to be attainable. Now they're attainable as long as certain situations fall into place the way that we want them and the way that we believe they will. So thinking about, the goals that we've had set, and then like pretty much the floor being like taken from under us. Um, and like how do we survive? How do we maintain the same measure of faith that we had prior to this happening? Is the question. And I would be lying if I wasn't angry um, at the situation, and angry with God at some points of time during this. I went through an emotional like a serious roller coaster of up and downs and loop the loops. As I don't know what they're called now, but back in the day they were called loop the loops. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay with that of how I felt about the situation, and I will um, let you know how much I appreciate your steadiness in during this time. Like your faith, as far as on the outward appearance of the faith that you have in God and what He has in store for us, hasn't wavered through this situation. Um, Me, I'm a very emotional being. I'm not heady. I'm more emotional. I guess this is how we why we mesh a little well, and how we can raise our son to be somewhat balanced. Um, I'm not heady. I am very, heart, like things happen, and um my first response is to react off of how I feel about the situation, even though I coach people to not respond on how they feel about a situation. But I also give myself that a little bit of leverage and room to know that I'm going to go step outside of my bounds that I usually do, because I know I'm going to come back eventually, but I need to be able to have the freedom to feel and express those feelings um, in the way that I choose to. And I will say that you do give me that, like that outer circle.
Yeah.
I think that you've given me enough, you extend me enough trust to know that I'm going to come back.
Yeah.
And I think especially during this time, um, that is something that is very important. And I appreciate you for that. So this is us turning our the bag of lemons that have been thrown at us into lemonades. Lemonade
Mhm. Yeah.
at the moment. If I could dive a little deeper into like why I felt so hurt or
Yeah.
why I am more pained with the situation is because it would be because of the plans that we had lined up. Like we were in the process of closing on a house.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I wouldn't say it was our dream house, but it was our step towards dreams that we
Mhm.
had,
Right.
that we have. And so, yeah, that hurt a little bit because that all came to a halt. And I mean, when I say we were closing on the house, it was happening probably this week. We would have been closing.
Mhm.
And, you know, our son was very excited about it, and we had to unfortunately give him the news. But I can say, looking at the silver lining, we're not in a terrible situation right now, living situation.
Mhm.
So God is faithful even when it doesn't seem like He's on our side. Like God has remained faithful, and yeah, that's like one of the things I have to stand on is like, you know, knowing where God has brought us from. Like we've been, like you said, we've been in a situation where one of us was unemployed or underemployed or,
Mhm.
you know, and we were living, literally living paycheck to paycheck. And I can say that God has blessed us to where we're not living paycheck to paycheck. Now we are because we don't have paychecks coming in. But we were able to use those 2 years worth of steadiness that God gave us to you know do things like work on our credit to where it's you know my credit score is better than it's ever been in my entire life. I'm not
Yeah.
going to throw what it is out there, but it's good enough for us to purchase a home, and
Mhm.
we're able to you know stack a substantial amount of savings so that our next decisions do not have to be made so hastily. So I can say that that is God, and that is the difference between what it was before and what it is now, and that is some of the silver lining of
Mhm.
this situation, but it's still a terrible situation.
Yeah.
I'm not very comfortable, but I talk about being uncomfortable all the time. And it's, you know, it just pains me when I have to experience some of the things over again that I talk about. You know, it's like, come on, God, can you give me a break? I already went through
Yeah.
this stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, so since this series is titled Take Back Your Life, I would like to ask you if there has ever been a moment where you felt you needed to do something to take back your life. And it can, you know, it doesn't have to be this situation. It could be something personal or, you know,
Mhm.
be prior to me.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't involve a
No.
whole bunch of
I,
girls.
I, yeah. No. I think it does have to do with right now. So I'll give one from the past and then piggyback up to this to right now. I think these two stories will be helpful to anyone who's listening. So I remember and I've shared this with you before, right? So there was a scenario where I had a previous relationship, right? Many
Did
moons ago.
really?
Many moons ago. Right, exactly. All of that, those were all the fails was back then, right? And so this was well before Shayla and I met, and was in a very serious relationship with somebody who attended my church, and it was the first time like I really felt like, all right, this is the one. This is going to go in the right direction and everything. So we were dating, and then again, sort of abruptly and suddenly after, sort of being the sweethearts of a church, and I went to one of those big old churches that still had a very tight family feel. So it was a mega church, but like everybody in your business. So it's like the worst possible combination for two people who are dating when everybody in the world wants you to get married, right? Um, and so I remember for not a very sound reason, she wanted to break up, right? And it was an emotional thing, whatever. And it was just like painful, like wreck with pain. I just remember going to church. I couldn't do just the very basic things for like close to a year. I remember just trying to duck her. Didn't want to see any friend, like the whole nine being in my space. I'm talking about I'm at that church 3 and 4 days a week. I'm not talking about being no Sunday Christian. Like
Mhm.
I was living it.
Mhm.
And so I remember having one conversation with like one of the OGs from the men's ministry. He just kind of sat me down. He was like, "Hey, look, let me ask you a question." He was like, have you, would you want the same option to leave? And I was like, well, what do you mean? He was like, well, think about it. I mean, think about relationships that you started in 6th grade. Have you continued those? Like, are you in that same relationship now? And I was like, oh crap. Like I get the point. Like I was only seeing the whole and not the donut. I was only seeing the fact that like I was in all this pain. She did me wrong, she did me dirty, or I perceived it that way, and not realizing like, yo, we're not married, where she's completely entitled to have this decision the same as I would, right?
Mhm.
And so from then on, I just kept rolling. So even though it was painful, that was a season for lemons into lemonade. I just started like going 10x on all my efforts in ministry. I started establishing myself in terms of my career. In my career, I became, a professional development expert in the K-16 out of school time space, started saving up money. I became a homeowner, like all these different things, right? By God's grace, as he was leading me, he was giving me the energy and the wisdom and all that stuff as I was plugging into to church and the men's fellowship and all that stuff. So that was kind of the way that paved the way, if you will, for me to meet my real roof, like the one that God really intended for me. So hopefully that's just an encouragement to people to know that, like, yeah, life has some lemons to it, and there's this process that we go through, and it will be some painful parts of it. That fruit has to be crushed.
Mhm.
Just bottom line, that fruit has to be crushed. But through that process, you put one foot in front of the other. You trust God and take His hand. He will deliver you on the backside with some refreshing lemonade.
Yeah, and I'm very thankful that she crushed her heart.
Amen.
um,
Yeah.
but in order for you to even begin the process of taking back your life, you had to make a decision to do so, correct?
Yep.
So you couldn't wallow, you couldn't continue to feel, you had to give yourself time to process, but afterwards you decided that you were going to do something better that was for you. And a
Mm.
lot of that involved your relationship with God versus relationships with someone else who eventually um, groomed you into um, the man who was capable of marrying someone like me, who who was a handful to say the least.
I'm married up. I'm convinced to this day. Again, that might be past experience talking, or but I think not. I think just objectively speaking, like there's an expression, outkick the coverage. I definitely outkick the coverage. So
Well, I agree with you. I think you did marry up. Um,
and humble.
but in the same at the same time, I married up also, but that's a whole nother conversation, and
Mm.
I won't go down
Sure.
that rabbit hole because I tend to. But I will wrap this session up. When life throws you lemons, you have to decide what you want to do with it. Are you going to remain bitter, or are you going to try to make the situation um, a little bittersweet? So that's what I have for you today.
Mm.
Join me next week. I may or may not have a guest. It may just be me. And we'll continue these conversations with Shay. You have a great and awesome evening. Thank
Shalom.
you.
Good everybody.